I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:35.
Taking the minutes is fairly easy. You just do a rough draft, and then I compare it with the live video to make sure I've got it straight. You know.
I want to welcome everybody here. I am very pleased with the team that we have. We haven't had a full 5-member team for, let's see, 1, 2, 3, for a couple of months now, because Joe was on it, Mike was on it, Dan. No, we haven't had a full 5-member team for what, a year? A couple of years now. Because we had one had stepped off, and then Joe, who was on it for many years, he stepped off because he had a lot of commitments. So we're back up to 5 members again, which I'm very pleased about with what we got heading into. I would like to introduce you to Mr. Austin Siganowitz. He is our new town administrator since January 1st, correct?
What?
Since January 1st?
No, I wish it was that, no, mid-April.
Mid-April?
Yeah.
Okay. And he's already feels like he's been here since January 1st.
It feels like it's been years, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he hit the ground running, so I believe the town is very lucky to have him. We're going to be seeing a lot and working with him a lot this year because of the capital budget that we're going to be doing. And before we get into anything, Austin, would you like to say a few words about yourself or what you're looking at here at the CIPC?
No, just, well, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to working with this committee. I think the fact that you have this committee speaks a lot about, the intentions and the commitment to financial best practices. The fact that you're even talking about capital and talking about it this early in the budget process is a good thing. Especially where we're talking about, often some of these projects that get into the millions of dollars, we should be planning and talking about them and identifying, best practices for funding them and making sure those projects are complete. So, finance is one of my favorites, believe it or not, about municipal government. So, and especially when you're talking about projects and capital initiatives, this is kind of the fun part. So I look forward to working with you, and I know you've done a lot of good work over the years, and I look forward to continuing that with you. So.
Okay. You got any questions for Austin?
No, good to meet you.
Okay. Next on the agenda, I'd like each of us to kind of tell a little bit about who we are, where we live in the area. You don't have to say the street number, just say I live north, south, east, and Rutland. I'm a Rutland, whatever. And a little bit about what you do and how you came about to being on this committee. Mike
Ferguson.
I held it on to you, I know that. So.
I live down on Palmagussit Road. Harry talked me into this committee. Quite a few years ago, I've known him for a long time, both as a friend and professionally. And I retired from 43 years as a civil engineer with the city of Worcester. And just thought I should do something other than play golf, which I like very much, and gardening, but no, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. Absolutely.
That's a wealth of experience right there.
Yeah, it's a fair amount. I work mostly at DPW, and 80% of that was in water rehab and water distribution, the reservoirs and everything,
Yeah. Love it.
Chris?
Chris Morrison. I live in Brunel Farms. Grew up in Lunenburg, Mass. It's a very small farm town, very similar to this in northern Worcester County. Work for Geldwin Windows and Doors. We're a national window and door company, so I've kind of been out in Syracuse, been down in Philadelphia, had an opportunity to move back home. My wife and daughter going into school, so we moved to Rutland in 2019, and kind of started getting involved in following politics and everything, especially with my daughter in Naquag and everything. So I actually know Dan Gracie. Our daughters go to school together, so he let me know there was an opening, and I thought,
So he's
good
strong-armed
opportunity
you.
to, huh?
He strong-armed you.
He strong-armed me, yeah.
Okay.
Britt Bradford, I live on Bigelow Road, very new to Rutland. We moved here last year, so I've been here a year now. Moved from Hopkinton. Before that, was born and raised in Oklahoma. And I'm on a farm, so not far from where didn't live far from where I started. I own my own development company. I currently do a lot of projects in Metro West, areas like that. So yeah, Harry called me and sort of talked to me. I started doing a little bit of investigation, and I told him right off the bat I'd love to help in any way I can for the town of Rutland. So
Who was it that called you? Oh, him. Okay. Pushy guy.
he bought me coffee, and I said yes. Yeah, so
Yeah, we had a good chat. Thank you. You don't know much about me. I've been the chair of this committee for 15 years. Had a lot of people come and go, a lot of great people who knew a lot of stuff. The committee started in 2008 through an article in the town that initiated the CIPC to begin with. And the people on it, we had an interview for it to be on the committee, and so they chose 5, which is what we are commissioned to do. And in the early years, well, first off, I had my own financial business for over 30 years, so I love numbers. I'm a guy that likes to crunch and research that stuff.
Like, no,
In the early years, we had mostly stuff that dealt with 10,000 here, 12,000 there. We dealt with maybe police cruisers, that kind of stuff. So it was really, and then we started to get into some bigger stuff. Fire stations were one. Not fire stations, fire trucks were one, the ladder trucks, ambulances on a continual basis. Some school work from time to time that had to be done, roofs and all that stuff. So we encompass a lot of stuff because our charge is at least $10,000 and at least 5 years. So that's the basis by which we start. Off and on, this committee has had 3 people, 4 people. Not a lot of time when we've had 5 people, except for maybe the last 6 years, 5 or 6 years, and we've had 5 people on, so it's been consistent since then. Currently, the committee uses a rating system. This is what I call probably the only non-political committee in town, in which we have no grudges, no eyes to pick. You give us the facts, you tell us what you want, we do the research, and we have a numbering system by which we number it. And then we look at the recommendations to submit to the select board and the finance committee. So if your number is down here, it ain't getting there too soon because there's so much other demand that comes into play. We put out a report every year. In the past, we've had as many as 16-page reports. Currently, we're down to, because of COVID and everything, we were down to maybe a page or 2 pages in the past of recommendations that we put. The 16-page report had a lot of forecast in it. It has the debt requirements, when it goes on, when it comes off, so we can forecast when things need to be put in line, when we see the big money coming in. Our charge is to watch over the tax levy and the debts on this town, so we can't just keep recommending anything. We have to be sensitive to that. So on average, we'll probably do $100,000 to $300,000 out of, say, 20 million. So we were pretty conservative. Austin can talk a little bit about our charge if I miss something, but our charge really is now to develop and present so our town administrator knows where our stuff is and what year we're going to be putting it on and why our reasons are that we have a capital budget and a capital plan. Our capital plan is 5 years. That first year becomes the capital budget. that goes to the finance committee and the select board and the town administrator. Select board decides, even with our recommendations, whether or not it's valid to put on an article to present to the town for voting on, so we can spend the money. So, and if they want to do that, then they send it to the finance committee and they try to work it into their books. But we also try to help by coming up with sources of income if possible. Are there grants available? Are there any special programs out there that can help fund this thing? So we do a lot of research when somebody comes up with something for us, and we ask a lot of them. And depending on how efficient the departments have been in getting us stuff, depends how quickly we can get it done. We like to get it to in the past, we've liked to get it to the town select board and finance committee by the middle of March. And then around April or sometime, we do our report, send it to the town so it can go in the annual report for May. So that's, and in here, we're gonna go through what the time schedule is. But because Austin is an efficient person, he likes to get it done quickly. So we're gonna see if we can adapt. He's given us a new schedule. I'll run over that with you. If we can adapt the stuff that we're doing to make sure it gets done in time. Because we're gonna have a little different process, which we've been using for 15 years. So I'm kind of an old stuck in the mud on that stuff. So Austin's come up with something new, and he'll kind of review that with us, and we can talk about it. Okay?
I mean, in the past, we always sort of had a handle on how much free cash there was gonna be.
Right.
But things have changed, and, you know, there may be $1.5 million in recommendations and only 300 in free cash. But the last couple of years, everything has been up in the air as to how much money we're getting.
Right.
You know, we tried to push some of it towards the ARPA funds, and I don't know where, though, you can fill us in if those are spent or if there's any left, or what that may be. You know, the American Rescue Act funds that they put out.
So before I go anywhere else, I should have done this earlier, I've got a call for a reorganization of the board, of the committee. Like I said, I have been the chair for 15. I do not have to be the chair. If somebody would like to assume that responsibility, that's fine. If you want me to continue until you figure you guys got your feet wet, that's okay with me too. I'm all right with that. Mike has been the clerk, takes the minutes and all that stuff. If somebody else would like to do that job, unless Mike wants to keep it.
My suggestion would be, let's wait until Dan's here.
Well, Dan already told me what he would do.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah. he's
I have a feeling I know what it is.
Okay. Yeah. And then, of course, those are the three: clerk, vice chair, and chair. Those are the three positions. Then you're a member at large. So does anybody have a preference of what they like to do? I mean, Mike, do you still want to do clerk?
I'll keep it for the time being, but I'm gonna wanna give it up soon.
Okay.
Okay, I'll keep it for the time being.
All right. So if,
It's up to me to square away everything with Anita and
Okay.
get everything properly posted and everything for now anyways.
okay. Would anybody else like to run for the clerk's position or mention it?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, after seeing how
Okay.
things are done, I don't mind.
We'll go for a few meetings, a couple, 2 or 3 more meetings and see how, and if you're still interested, I'll
Okay.
pass it on to you, okay?
Dan has thrown his hat in the ring for vice chair. So if anybody would like to throw their hat in the ring for that,
That was,
huh? That's what
Joe's
you-
job.
That's it.
That was Joe's
job. And then vice chair. So if you're all agreeable, I need somebody to make a motion for a slate of officers. Would be, if you're agreeable, me for chair, Dan for vice chair, and Mike for clerk.
temporarily, yes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion, we do that for the time being,
For a slate of officers.
say, for the slate of officers.
Okay.
As you spelled out.
Okay. Any discussion?
None.
Okay.
A second?
Second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Very good. Now we've got our new slate. Okay. Now I'm gonna, I didn't see any minutes Mike, did we not?
I was not at the last meeting,
Oh, who took the minutes? Oh, Dan did.
Dan, okay.
Okay, so we'll postpone those until our next meeting.
We need Dan.
Yeah. So I will, before we get into discussion of the new process or anything else, I would like to turn this over to Austin. If he has some thoughts or suggestions, and we had talked before about what you'd like to see for getting us the information from the departments that we need.
Sure. Yeah, so, thank you, Harry. So I've prepared, so there's three, actually there's 4 documents here, for each of you.
You have that.
Yeah, I've got to read through this because this is going to be important.
Pass that to Harry.
Okay.
Yeah, because I still have that one.
So the documents in front of you are the documents pertaining to the beginning of our capital budget process, or capital planning process as well. So the first is the overall budget schedule for our capital plan budget and our operating budget. So, as Harry mentioned, I'm efficient, and I'd like to start this capital budget process this month. So my intent for being here tonight is to present this to you, get your thoughts, make any revisions to these documents as necessary, and send out this packet to town departments and any relevant committees, and also the school district, to begin this capital process. So where this takes is we start essentially next week, and over roughly 2.5, almost 3 months, we work together to develop the capital budget and capital plan, and ultimately present that to the FinCom and Select Board in December, and kind of get the final budget approval in January/February. So that still gives us plenty of time between February and May, prime time for town meeting. Any surprises comes up, good news, bad news, we're prepared for it. So that's the first page, is just the overall schedule.
That's gonna get us going a little faster than it has in the past. Normally, we're sending out requests in September. You want us to get them by then.
Yeah, well, so.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, so, and my thoughts especially, finalizing a capital budget in March, to me is a challenge because, ideally by the end of the year, we have our free cash certified. Not ideally, we're required to have that certified by the end of the year. So by then, as we're talking, we have a special town meeting, and we're already talking about the budget, we should have an idea of where we're looking for our capital requests, and from prioritization, what our FY25, for example, budget should look like for capital needs. So we've got ARPA, we've got free cash, and then we'll have an idea on what our general fund our capital budget should look like. And this is, pretty standard with other cities and towns, especially in the Commonwealth, especially in this area. Starting in the, kind of late summer, and ideally getting it done by the winter. So then when you're in the spring, you're not scrambling, you're ready for town meeting. Because as you know, there's a million other things that come up in advance of town meeting as well. So the second document is a memo to town departments and all the parties that I mentioned. Essentially, this is just the instructions for everyone to follow. Now, this is just something that I've developed. I know, for example, you see, I know that this committee's minimum floor is $10,000. I am presenting $25,000. And the reason why I'm presenting 25, and of course, open for discussion, is because, especially now, just parts for some of for example, our fire trucks, tires alone have gotten into the couple of thousands of dollars. Sometimes just for parts and general operations, we're spending $10,000 very quickly on emergency needs. Candidly, the idea for this capital planning process is, smaller items should be ideally planned for within your operating budget, supplies and services alone. So, of course, happy to talk about that. I just want to note that from the beginning because you do see that right from the start.
I didn't think that was something we had a choice in. I thought that was dictated by the state.
It's dictated by the bylaws.
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. But it says has to be at least $10,000. So.
You can make it 100,000 if you want.
So
Okay.
if the town administrator
Millions are cut off.
is suggesting to the
So I
town,
used to deal with this in the city of Worcester, and I was told it was dictated by the state, the dollar amount.
No, they have recommendations, and generally it's 25.
Okay.
It's
More realistic, I agree with you.
Yeah, I've seen, actually, and I've seen, maybe Cambridge, and of course we can't compare to Cambridge, but they were substantially high. Just because, when you're, the size and the cost nowadays to run these departments, it's really crazy. So with this, we're asking for a lot of information, as you all have done over the past 15 plus years, right, Harry? We're asking for backup material, we're asking for information related to just the project alone, whether it is equipment replacement, building design, building construction, feasibility study, and then we're asking for information such as, categorizing such, providing a general description and purpose, photos, which are helpful to give a little bit more context, and then obviously, how are you gonna pay for it? The
Estimates,
recommending financing, which is important, because as Harry mentioned, there's a lot of opportunities and funding sources that we have, whether it's a grant, whether it's free cash. Some departments have the opportunity to use their enterprise fund fees, so like the water and sewer departments have fees charged to the users through rates. A rec department has a revolving fund. So some have opportunities in other funds that not necessarily the general fund has access to. And then I thought it was important for this committee to, and I don't know how closely this matches what you've done, Harry, but just a general questionnaire, and there's 8 questions that are kind of we're asking each department for each, we're asking departments for each project to provide just some some additional information to give a little bit more context on that request.
We get requests, and we read between the lines to answer these questions very often.
This is, what we've been following is this thing right here, the manual from us. So that's what we started with, that's what we've been following. So as far as the rating system, some of that can be pulled off the sheet. I don't know if you've seen that. That's our rating system.
That's what we use, that's recommended by the state.
We've
Not
changed it
mandatory.
somewhat, if it's a safety issue, well, then it's a kind of a rubber stamp type thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so on page 3 and 4, we go into, and so this looks pretty close, and candidly, these scores are essentially what I have here. I just obviously didn't put explicitly the scores.
Yeah.
But asking for general, asking the departments to, put their priority, and to the same extent, it's, if it's a public safety, or if it's compliance with a federal or state law, it's a higher priority.
Do you have a copy of the form that we, in the past, have sent to the departments?
Form C?
yeah,
Is that here?
Yeah.
Form C? Yeah, okay.
yeah, it's, it'll be, let me get everybody's copy so we know what we're talking about here.
Because we might want to alter this slightly to make some of these questions a little more clear.
And you know what?
And I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, when we get the information,
Yeah. this
we can
Form
tailor
C right
our
there. Right.
point system or whatever we do to feedback from the information that we get. I mean, I thought about, I'll be honest with you, when I thought about what Austin was gonna do, I had a little bit of fatherly love for what we did. Hard to give that thing up. But also, we didn't get a response from a lot of departments the way we should, committees. So I'm hoping with Austin's approach and leading the charge and getting us this stuff, that will improve. So I'm looking to move forward and really make this thing sing, if you know what I mean.
And that's a great point, because I've heard that as well, actually, from Harry, and just watching your meetings in the past. I think last year, did you have, was it one department?
Yeah,
that
we just
requested?
have one thing.
We had, right, I mean, there are a couple of, I'll name some people, Seth and Joe Buckley were very good about,
Right.
Seth's already done his operating budget.
I do believe that.
Seth has got his act together, in my opinion.
Seth is our
And
partner.
Joe did too when he was here. Because they always had all the questions answered, and they always had quotes for us and things. There was no guesswork, And some other departments don't know how to go about that.
Yeah.
It's not that they can't justify what they're asking for, but they don't know how to go about checking the state. Are there bids available in the state that you can ride on? Are there quotes available there? who I called to get a quote.
Have you guys sort of, in those instances where you're trying to read between the lines of people who may or may not know how they're filing this request, are you guiding them to go find that, go back and get the answers? Or as you as a committee, have you you then take it and then dig in and answer the
Well,
questions?
we've done some of both.
We do both, yeah.
I gotta say, Joe Buckley is bad. It's unfortunate that he left, because he would take the lead for other departments, whether it was the senior center and the town place over there, or the library. He would help with that job. He would get consultants to give them the information they needed. And so we didn't really have to do it. You had a guy there who was more than willing to stretch outside his designated lines to help other departments, you know?
So the big three, DPW, fire, and police. Police, we really didn't get anything with, because under a lot of communities, police vehicles are treated as a capital asset. We decided not to do that because it's on a revolving. So what if it doesn't last longer than 5 years? Every 5 years, they're pretty much getting a new police car, at least. So that was it. Radios, you know, a lot of times they don't even come to $10,000 or $20,000. So there's a lot of stuff in the police department that didn't make sense to come through us. So we kind of gave them the lead to go ahead and submit it to the select board if you want something, or the TA now. So it's really the big two. Well, sewer and water, enterprise funds, DPW, and the fire. Those were our big three. And then the library came in. We've had some stuff with the Wood Studio, the Historical Society stuff. So there have been little scatterings, but nothing from 15 departments or committees have given us stuff. And which, in my opinion, is great, because what I'd like to see, we have been in the weeds way too long dealing with this small stuff. When I read probably half a dozen charges from different cities and towns of capital improvement. They're looking at the big stuff. That's where they are, and that's where we should be. So I'm hoping with what Austin is doing, that'll get us to that point where we can concentrate on a $10 million project that's 5 or 10 years down the road, and start lining that up and getting everything in place. So that's because how many times have we dealt with stuff, small stuff? Too many times.
Too many.
Right.
But I've noticed that things are changing in town. There were things we were considering trying to find a way to get done that are getting done now.
Yeah.
Behind the town hall, all the pavements being done, that was something we had considered.
Well,
I don't know if that's part of the street
right
job.
here for that. Yeah. You can thank him for that. Did a yeoman's job, and it didn't cost the town anything.
Really?
No,
See, in
$150,000 project.
We used to do,
200 now, they boosted the price.
we used to be able to do all kinds of stuff
Inflation.
like that. It was considered non-participating work, and we had to fork up the money, even though it would get tacked onto existing contracts doing something else.
That was I was just curious about how the project was going. I had my coffee in the morning. It was 8:05. Go up to the project manager and I say, I would love to do our parking lot. I can do it. Oh, okay, yeah, when do you start? Yeah, do you need me to grab a shovel? I'll help you. But yeah, no, so they, I didn't know this, but apparently they build in contingencies for it oftentimes.
Yeah.
Especially with these tip.
Oh, yeah, I put bids out a lot, and
Yeah.
there was always contingency.
Yeah.
But I wasn't free to spend it until I knew all the other expenses were covered,
Yeah.
because there's always unknowns.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've had some surprises with that project.
And
Could I just add, just to,
Sure.
I kind of view it as my responsibility to work with a lot of all these departments to make sure that they're requesting things, and in my opinion, it shouldn't go to CIPC if you don't have all the information. I view that as an incomplete submission, because it's a waste of your time to call a meeting, get everyone together, review the information if it's incomplete. So that's what I hope to do with this process, is really work closely with them to have all the information they need. And hopefully you do see more, because, and the very last document, we'll get to that at some point, but the very last document is just what I could find in capital needs. And between the town and the schools, it's on the last page, it's a lot of money, it's $21 million. And that's not including everything, because this is only what I could find. So there's a lot of needs.
And it doesn't include a lot of maintenance work either. It's just basically capital.
So just to close out, so then the last page on the instructions are, just proposed CIPC's scoring criteria. And, this may be a little different, and I'd be happy to adjust it to make sure that it's in line with the way we've done things. But it's generally around the same as what you've described, Harry. So the idea obviously is by, by September, October, we have everything scored and we have a plan for this year and then future years for proposed capital items. And then, so the third page is very similar to what you have, your Form C. It's just a project detail sheet, kind of showing estimated expenditures by year, the type of project it is, the justification, and then also at the bottom is just a legend for the sources of funds, any proposed funding sources for those. And then obviously they can attach additional information with their.
And the departments are gonna submit this as
Yeah,
part
so-
of the, yeah.
Yep, so this is an Excel, just an Excel spreadsheet that,
Yep.
they fill in all the information, provide as much as they can to my office, and we compile it and put it together in a packet for CIPC to review. So I do have a due date to departments by mid-September for their requests. That gives me a couple of days to compile everything, make sure that they're complete, and then the committee can start their work and review things. Ideally, also when we're reviewing, we have an opportunity to with complete submissions, we have the departments present to be able to obviously talk through and answer your questions that you may have. But the goal is to make sure that you have a packet well in advance of those meetings to review and ask any sort of questions in advance. So those discussions are a little bit more substantive.
Yeah.
This is great. This is gonna make our job easy. I should.
You know what? What it's gonna do is reduce the amount of time we have to ask questions, hopefully. Because we've had to have departments come in and ask what they want, stuff like that. Right now, we're dealing, like I said, we're dealing with the small stuff, but I think when you start looking at these, we're gonna focus a little differently on how we propose recommendations. And the first year is the important one, because that's the one that goes to the Finance Committee and Select Board in terms of recommendations. You'll see that maybe not everything gets recommended in the first year. And if not, then it gets pushed off. And we'll look again. Maybe next year they got a grant for it, so we don't need it on our system anymore. Those are the things we try to keep on top of. But I think we're off to a good start. I think if Austin's office gets us the stuff and he can encourage the people to get us the stuff on time.
Motivate.
So, September 13th on your desk. Is that what or to us? Okay, and then you'll get them directly to us. Okay.
And I know that there'll be, most people I'll be bugging well in advance to get those, but I know that there's gonna be the stragglers. I was one of them, very last minute.
Excuse me.
Good?
Thumbs up.
Can I call?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. They're interviewing for a new conservation agent, which is great.
We're slowly filling in these spots.
Yeah.
How long have we been without a conservation agent?
This is a new position.
Oh, wow,
Funded
really?
for this year, yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a
There's a conservation commission, right?
Commission.
But you have to
Yeah, it's been there
have to
forever, yeah.
Enforce it.
Well, it's just been the commissioners.
Interesting.
Pretty much the chairman has been writing the orders and decisions and such, so, yeah.
Awesome.
So, which is good, they're an active committee, but obviously they're all volunteers.
Yeah, it's
Like you guys.
every administration I've ever been with, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Okay, cool, sorry, not so track.
that's all right. So I did prepare, just based off of what I could find from previous requests and what I found in, this document, the 5-year capital plan. I tried to put as much as I could find in documents in just an overall summary form of, by department, including the schools, what the capital requests were. Obviously, they need to be updated, and that's actually part of these instructions, is look at what you submitted and update them. If they're not updated, then they must not be a priority anymore, so we can modify that as well. So, like I mentioned, just on the general government side, we've got 17 million, and then the remaining balance, which I know is not up to date, is the school district. Schools have a lot of need, there's a lot of projects there. There's only a couple of them that are kind of higher dollar. Most of them are related to roof replacements, and then they've got, surface replacements and such, so.
One of the things I think that's gonna help us this year is the budget that was passed, and going to the governor's desk, is they allotted a lot of money for schools. Some money for transportation, will take some pressure off us and also road construction, and bridge work. So they've stepped up on that, and they've also allowed some money for municipal government, for general government. So as far as, it's gonna be a new year, in other words, in terms of what we recommend because of all the stuff that's out there. So it's gonna be an interesting year going forward from where we are.
Interesting. I read a lot online about the new state government budget, and I couldn't tell what we might actually see here. You can't tell from that.
Well, one of the things I like to do as we go forward is also try to, as we put together our 5-year plan, try to get it coordinated if we can with the stuff that's here, when stuff comes out, when stuff comes in. Kind of look at this as our plan.
What's that document? Where'd you get that?
This came from.
I haven't seen that.
This is from the governor's government's website, and it talks about the 5-year plan.
Oh,
And how it's broken down.
For some reason, I
and
thought that was a
what's-
Rutland 5-year plan.
No, this is the,
Okay.
I think I get yelled at if I made something with using that much ink. I'm happy to say thank you for mentioning the budget, because there is a lot of funding in there for local governments, and including schools. The schools have a lot of needs, and it's not just in Rutland and Wachusett, everywhere. Schools are fortunate that they do have a school building authority that provides significant amount of assistance for their buildings. Has been for a while, but it seems like there's a little bit more momentum in this legislative session for a public building authority, very similar to the MSBA, where it's partially financed by kind of a state trust fund. There's still a town obligation, but if we can say we have a $10 million fire station and the state will cover $5 million of it, it's a lot better project to present to
and
the
if we
voters.
can be lucky enough to get a new dispatch center, they'll pay for it.
Yeah.
So all the money's there for these. I feel like we're just about, the little engine that could is just about at the top of the hill, that we have this opportunity. So I think we've got a wonderful task ahead of us here to really define how things are going to be going in the town in the future years. We have a great opportunity.
We have often talked about the need for some sort of building committee in this town, because people have talked about, well, what are we gonna do to replace the community center or the senior center, or replace the annex, and it's, I don't know, that's a little over our heads of this committee,
Did you see the select board goals that were established?
Yes, I did, I read through those.
Yeah.
This just about 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
So,
We had, years ago when Margaret was our first TA, she had recommended that we look into having CIPC kind of look at buildings. And at that time, we said, we just don't have the expertise, we don't have the qualifications, but we would recommend you establishing a building committee. It has never happened, we haven't done that, because we can look at, if you want to put an elevator in a building, no, we can do that, that's not, but to redo a whole building,
or a new one.
I'm sure if we were tasked with it, we could do it. It wouldn't be great, but we could do it, but that's not our job. It really isn't. It's to look at, yes, buildings can go there, but it can be down in the year 2045, so we push it off, and then maybe help with the stuff of what quotes do you need, what engineers you gotta hire, all that stuff. But that's a little bit more for us than we wanted to take on. So I don't know how the board or whatever is gonna do as far as a building committee or what it's gonna be. It can be, if they want us to be part of it, I think we'd be an asset one way or another, but we've got our own job to do here for this stuff. you know. But yeah, and the parking lot, by the way, that parking lot has been on our agenda, on our stuff that.
My wish list.
Our wish list we oversee. It's gotta be going on 8 years now, okay? But it never rose to the top.
Well, I noticed you put a lot of the parking and the schools and everything in that back page there. That was something Joe Buckley had given us 2, 3 years ago, including that lot over there that you just got done. He had given us a breakdown of all of those, and I'm sure they're 30 or 40% more expensive than the numbers he gave us then, you know, because that's just the way things have gone the last few years.
Right. But
It's in the plan.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we've got a good committee, well-rounded committee that can look at a lot of stuff, you know, and really ask questions.
There's been things we've had to do, and I don't know how much we'll have to. Harry and I did walkthroughs of most of the buildings in town a number of years ago because people were complaining so much. And I went through all the DPW facilities and the water pump station and the senior center and the community center. Harry did the town hall and the police.
Library.
The library, and, you know, and you go in, and sometimes it's an eye-opener to look at things and say, yikes. And others, you know, the treatment plant, the water treatment plant, that was down my alley. And I was impressed with what a nice little station they have, but it was old and it needed work. And some of that has been done, and for water treatment, the DEP won't let you, they'll put down an order if you don't do it. And it gets done, or you lose your certification, your state funding, and everything, you know?
Yeah.
So,
These are the type, like the water treatment plant, that's the type of stuff we should be working on.
Yeah.
And planning for it, and moving forward on it in terms of capital recommendations and that stuff. Stuff like the book drop at the library. When I was there, I was afraid that if the book came in while I was standing in front of it, the thing would drop out. It was, the floor was despicable, it had fallen through, the book drop was just hanging in. And I checked with Carrie and she goes, no, that hasn't been fixed yet. And I'm going,
I mean,
but when you look at it and we put it on our system, there's where you get it. Because it's not a priority compared to, do we,
breathing units for the police department, the
Right.
fire department.
Fire department. do we buy a sander? Because if we don't, the town could be in violation, there could be liabilities there, people
Right.
skidding on sand. So all
Start
these,
to walk that line of safety issue now.
right.
Yeah, that
So that's
changes.
what I'm saying, we don't pick a fight in this, we don't have a fight in this dog. It's a dog in a fight, but it's what we try to do, rationalize where things end up and how they get recommended. That's been in the past, so we're gonna see how the new year works out for us.
And what the town finances might be.
Yeah.
I know I mentioned it a little while ago, the opera funds, and it's too soon to say what the free cash might be. I know how that goes. Maybe in the fall, you'll have a good idea after some of the town meetings in the fall, select board meetings and stuff, you know. That's when we usually get our first real idea of what, in the meantime, we look at things and we can rate them, and there's 1.8 million, not counting the fire engine, you know, and how many make the financial cut. These are our top ones, but.
Yeah, and we don't even know what you buy a fire truck, the state will pay, I think, 70 or 80% of the fire truck. But we still have to come up with the other 30, so.
Well,
But so that's kind of where we are. I want to go through the capital plan. I want to understand exactly what our job is, how we do it, go through some stuff, talk about this a little bit, talk about, and Austin, can I get a copy in a digital format of this? Because I also like to track that on a year from a graph standpoint, so we can see where stuff comes in and then compare that to when debt falls off, superimposed. I like to do those things.
I would appreciate a digital copy too, because I just put them in there and it's easier to refer to them in meetings and stuff.
Well, if I get a
Than
digital
shuffling
copy,
paper.
I can email it to you, or if he emails it to me, I can.
Yep, that's all it takes. Yep.
Okay. Oh, and by the way, our meetings run 6:30 to 8. Unless there's a cyclone, tornado, or a blizzard, we finish at 8 o'clock.
We try.
So very seldom do we not
I respect that.
at 8 o'clock. Austin, we'll let you go unless you want to sit here or you have something else for us?
I am going to talk to the conservation, if he's still here, Chairman.
Okay.
I think we may have a new agent that I could probably call and give her good news before she gets home.
All right. I appreciate
Thank you
I
very
appreciate
much.
you
Thank you for your
coming in.
time. Appreciate it. Awesome.
Thank you, Austin. Interesting. I was glad to see this new budget right in front of us that hopefully has a lot of changes from that. It covers some of that same years, but,
I think he took it mostly from
well,
that.
he did.
But
Yeah,
there
I
might have
know,
been
but,
some changes there.
you know, they
Yeah.
may have things by Seth that we don't know. Seth is on top of things. 2024, Cat 1 replacement, that's not a big deal. I'm not sure where it'll rate, but
I had planned to go through a lot of stuff. I don't want to bore anybody. Is everybody comfortable with what they see or understand as what the capital improvement planning committee is?
I'm comfortable understanding, yes, as far as
Okay.
getting into the weeds and the rating systems and, you know, it's pretty clearly spelled out. It's easy to follow, but
Right.
the process is something I need to absorb.
yeah.
Okay.
And when you sit down, you'll realize it's, as long as people do their homework, and I'm talking about the different departments getting us the data we want and everything. And Austin sounds like he's on top of that.
Yeah.
You'll find it's not that difficult. And if everybody does their homework the way he's got it lined out, our job's easy. You know?
The only thing that will change dramatically is the timeline. If you look at developing a capital, if you take this and you turn to page, if you turn to page 6, if you look at that timeline that he has for us, it moves it up quite a bit, because we usually didn't start until, put the stuff out in September, and we get the stuff back in October. He wants to have us till September. And normally in February, we would present the capital budget and capital program.
Which
But very-
document are you looking at?
This one here,
Rating sheet?
know that.
Page 6.
Did I give you one, Mike?
I don't see that here.
Here. There you go.
Oh, there, is that it?
No,
All
no,
right, I didn't get one. Ah, okay.
okay. So what's gonna change is our timeline for that. And it's gonna be kind of a wait and see, because we don't know how stuff's gonna come in, who we have to call in, and will we be able to abide by this. We're gonna try and honor the TA's request, because he has a big plate to fill, particularly for the finance committee and select board in putting together the budget, which usually always runs till midnight, the day before the meeting, town meeting, you know? So he's hoping to get this done.
Standard practice.
What's that?
Standard practice.
Standard practice, right, right. And we may use some of these things here to look like project, number of similar items in inventory. We may use some of these sheets. We're gonna keep it till when we get it. We'll go through some of this to see if this will help us and make recommendations to them how we can fine tune this thing. But other than that, everybody knows the open meeting law, conflict of interest law, so there's no problems there. And we'll see just how well we can do. In your kit, I wrote on here for building committee. Everything, this is a page that I gave you in that packet. Wait, this is the page I gave you. Not in that one, but in
And
somewhere
yellow,
else.
yeah.
I think in here, part of this somewhere, I'm not sure.
Third page in.
Yeah. This really is the stuff that we got from the town hall from an insurance standpoint, basically. And what it did was it listed all the buildings in town
Yeah.
for which the select board is responsible.
Who put this together? Was that
I
me or
believe it was Becky.
Becky?
I
You used to
think-
make me do that every year, and I used to go to Anita and try to get.
Yeah, usually get the police and fire, the equipment, that stuff. These are all
The buildings too, yeah.
yeah, these are the buildings that we have.
And we'd get the number from the insurance.
Right, so
values.
you can see here that the water treatment plant is worth 898,000 building value. Contents value is 1.143, so it's one of our more expensive buildings in the town. We just put up a new water tower,
Content-wise. Yeah.
content-wise, so that right there, we are having an issue with the ponds, the backfill ponds.
Yeah.
When you flush or flush ponds, we have to do something with those, and it's not gonna be an expensive thing, but it's gonna be more than $25,000.
Yeah, they have to do a lot of back flushing,
Right. So
especially in the
that's,
summer.
so that's an issue. I don't know if it's gonna come up, but I know DEP has been looking at it for that. And that was Joe's comment before you left, we look at that. So these are some of the things that the building committee is gonna hopefully be dealing with, but we may be involved in some of this. So I just put that in there for clarification. And then I have here, this is from March 2020, a list of the things that we did. So you'll find some of the stuff to go through and look to see what our minutes were, what we've recommended, what some of the stuff costs that we did. We'd look at DPW administration vehicle, 31,000. That's small. Fire station renovation design work, 10 grand. I'll be honest with you, anybody that gives me a quote for 10 grand should.
At this point, we're gonna want 25.
Huh?
At this point, we want 25 according to Austin.
Right, right. But 9950 would survive, so it doesn't have to go through CIPC. You know, I mean, something like that shouldn't have come through us.
You know, Joe would have to buy 4 computers, so I'd say buy 2 at a time.
Right, right. So I've
We don't
included a
worry
lot
about
of here that I don't think I gave you before. And also, copies of the stuff that we do. And I also put in here, if you're interested in it, just exactly what capital planning is, and a little bit about our purpose, mission, duties, composed of, just to give you an idea. So you can look through that when you have a chance.
You know, I personally think this is an easy committee. It's
It seems pretty
non-political.
straightforward.
I
I mean, it's
considered,
detailed, but
I considered
Right.
the Conservation Commission when I first retired, because I used to deal with that, and that's very political. It's like the planning board, it's very political, whose side do you want?
Nobody,
Harry said, you're gonna like my committee a lot better.
yeah.
this is numbers.
It's just numbers. You know, Joe at DPW never came to me and said, you know, if you push this through, I'll clean your street first.
Yeah, right.
You know? You know, that doesn't happen. So,
it is.
we are we have a good time here, we get the job done. That's the bottom line, and,
And to be honest with you, we usually have July and August off,
we do, that's right.
but,
But because
Austin
we're
wants a
with
jump.
TA and all that stuff.
I like it.
Yeah,
well, you know, he's new and he's gotta get things done.
Light the fire.
He's like, get things done. I
respect
like
it.
him so far.
I respect it.
right. So that's why we're getting an early, that's why I called this meeting, so I could introduce us and tell them about the new process we're gonna do, and then we have our regular meeting on the 24th, which, hopefully, we'll know that he sent the stuff out. We may even have some idea what's coming back, but what we're also gonna do is look at the old stuff. See what we have there, so we can get an idea of what might be coming into.
I do, I have that listed the 24th, I guess we must
Yeah.
set that.
Yeah, we did, we said that. So we got the next August, September, October, we got the
And we
next
got the
4 lined up.
14th.
Yeah, I think I saw it go all the way to November, I think. For
Yeah.
schedule.
Yeah, nothing in December, because of the holidays. Hopefully, we can get a lot of this cleaned up by November, and then finish it in January, and get the report to him in early February. I'm the guy that writes that 16-page report. So I might need some help from everybody in.
We have-
Task us out, yeah, say, hey,
Yeah,
I want you,
absolutely.
this is your section, write it up.
I'm trying to figure out, maybe you guys can help me, in terms of,
Joe Becker was a good writer.
Yeah.
We had him, he'd write letters for us to the town and stuff, and he had a way of wording everything.
he used to be a select board.
He's served in like almost every committee here.
Yeah.
And we were
It's
sorry
not
to
just
see him
what
go.
you say, it's how you say it.
That's right. I say it. He was good at it.
I'm hoping that as we go forward, everybody will take a little piece. You don't have to be a clerk, you don't have to be a vice chair, but everybody will take something that you can bring back to a meeting and I say, how does, for example, how does our expenditures on CIPC compare with when our debt comes off? Type of thing. If somebody likes doing Excel or graph work, perfect. You know, can handle that kind of stuff.
And Joe had some of those on his computer. I hope you got them.
I did.
Yeah,
I get all that. I'll get that the next meeting.
okay.
Yeah, I'll have all those printed out so we can, and I don't know, Joe took care of making, everything was on the computer, so if we had a 25 count for a plow, he had it right on there. We could track everything, and we knew how far back these things went that didn't get approved or recommended. So how long they've been on the system. I'm willing to share that with anybody, if you wanna.
I'd love to start looking into it, like the older requests that have sit out there.
I'll get you a copy of
Yeah,
that.
that would be.
Yeah.
So I can just start wrapping my head around like, all right, you know, we have a snowplow that's been out there for 15 years.
Right.
You know, that kind of stuff. Where,
Yeah.
Right. I can email you the spreadsheet.
Yeah, however.
Joe had a good spreadsheet, and Seth, the same thing with his equipment at fire. He'd tell you the age of everything, and you're looking, and he says, oh, that's a good truck, that's only 99. That's 24 years old.
25 years old.
Yeah.
I think
know,
the
we
ladder,
toured the DPW for their equipment one year.
and Joe showed us the plows and everything. He was buying 5-year-old snow plows from Vermont, and for 50 grand, and that was considered a real good deal.
Yeah.
With the rigs on them and everything, you know?
And here's one truck there that he uses for sanding and ice, for sanding and salt. I can't tell you how many times he welded frames together.
All you can see was all the stick lines from the weld line.
But he had a couple of
There's
people.
no steel left. It's all arc weld.
He had a couple of people over there that would do the work, and sometimes he'd have to get outside.
Okay,
But he'll work that stuff into his budget. We didn't see requests for that.
yeah.
I mean, he had to be getting a whole new runner and side blade and everything to exceed the amount, you know. Those might be 20 grand, you know?
Have we, do we have a director at this point? Or has that position been?
Yeah, we
filled?
do.
Okay,
Chris
I
Kolofsky,
saw that. Yeah.
who used to be the foreman,
okay.
accepted the job.
I don't know him. I
Nice
actually
guy,
might have met
very
him.
skilled. But now we gotta replace the foreman. I mean, this guy, Chris did everything well.
And one thing
You
Joe
know.
complained about is he'd never had enough drivers for the equipment he had in the wintertime.
Right.
He'd have to bring in private equipment.
So hopefully.
Labor is hard to come by.
This town was in such a situation where we had the same number of DPW workers, basically, we had 8 years ago. With the town growing, the roads and everything the way it is. So I'm hoping the board can solve some of those problems.
Right.
Or the TA can solve some of that employee, hiring problems to get that squared away,
All
because
right.
it's been tough.
Can we confirm some dates?
What do you-
We've got the 24th,
Yep,
right? The next meeting, 2 weeks.
yeah. And every time I give you,
Your friend is attempting to reach you on your cellular device.
sorry, Jim. So what I'm trying to do is, at the bottom of every agenda, you're gonna see when the next date is. Okay,
So next,
so,
Yeah, you've got through November posted.
right,
So-
so there's 4 postings there.
I don't have the date for October. I don't have it in my calendar.
October 19th.
19th, yeah.
19th,
Yes, sir.
okay.
There's 5 posted. There's today's and then August 24th.
Right,
Okay, August 24th, and then I have, September, October, November,
yeah,
16th,
yeah,
and,
nothing in December.
nothing in December.
And we didn't book January yet, so we'll do that
Okay,
at the end.
so I'm all up to date on
And
what meetings
and
we
I
have.
don't know if we're gonna have to meet twice in January or whatever. to finalize everything that we're doing. So that's the crunch time for our committee,
Okay.
is that one.
Okay. We've been out of an ordinary cycle the last couple of years.
Ever since COVID.
Ever since
yeah.
COVID, you know? And it would be nice to be able to count on a regular cycle.
Any other questions or discussion or anything of interest that you have you want to get off your mind?
And by no means a priority, but if you guys have an example of something that either DPW or fire department has submitted in the past, even just an example so that I can start to wrap my head around what they are presenting to us. I know it's gonna change a little bit with how it's presented now that, the TA is kind of driving a little bit of that submission.
Right.
But I'd love to see an example of a submission.
Well,
I can,
It's not a big deal if not, I mean, I'm sure I'll see him here shortly.
I'll tell you something that's changed.
I have that at home. A perfect example is the fire department.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah, he does an excellent job, and
he's replacing a ladder truck here in 2025 for 1.85 million. The big
That's
truck.
it? I thought they were more than that.
1.85.
Wow, that's
When he
great.
first submitted it to us, probably in 15 or 16, it was 1.05.
That's good.
yeah,
But then he did a lot more homework and he thought it was eligible for grants. This is just how this has evolved over the years.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
2 years ago, he found out that it wasn't old enough to qualify for a replacement grant. It had to be 25 years old. And I think it's 25 years old as of 24 next year. And he's got it in here for 25. And if he meets the requirements of the state grant, he'll get a significant portion of that paid. But that's up in the air still. You know, a lot of towns do the same submittals, and they might do their own rating system and say, well, yours is better than theirs, or something, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know how the state decides that. And they're
that-
actually federal grants, I think, that come through the state.
Is that the information, though? Do they provide us with any kind of proof of, or a theory of, like, you know, here's the section of the state, you know, law that says they'll cover this and this, and then we take that into factor? Or are we on our own to kind of just take with?
We're always gonna have to match something.
well, yeah,
Right.
and we ask him, can you tell us where this is? Can you give us a copy of general, it says this has to be replaced? I mean, they know that stuff inside out.
Right.
But we
Well,
don't-
fire department,
we don't
feel bad
normally
excuse because
get
they're
it.
pretty squared away. But like I was thinking more of like a, you know, committee that doesn't, or a department that doesn't necessarily give us full applications or requests. if you
Well,
will.
there's been some of those that have come through from the community center and the library and stuff. And it's like you said, what's her name over there at the library? She has a lot of stuff she wants done, and they're legitimate. If you go in and look at it, rugs are coming up off the floor and stuff. She wants to recap it, the whole thing.
Right.
And it never rated high enough. And she was looking to Joe Buckley to help her get quotes on how to get quotes and stuff, to do that kind of work. And it's something that's lagged for a while. And my opinion was pay for it out of COVID funds, because if you can justify it anyway, you can justify it in that building, because that was the COVID center for a long time. But that didn't get done that way. There may still be funds to do it, though. There's lots of little things that have hung for a long time. She wanted new,
Saw a request for gutters.
no, not boilers, the generators.
Air
or the-
conditioners and
Those
stuff.
big,
Heaters.
whatever, the heaters and air conditioners,
Yeah, on the top
until
of
they
it.
failed. And then they used COVID money to change one, and then they headed the second one off at the pass before it failed. And I think there's still a third one.
Like I think new gutters. I was just reviewing one of the handouts, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, things drag sometimes.
One of the things the town has, I don't know if it's unique or not, is we have a lot of buildings, probably maybe 4 or 5 buildings that we lease. And in most of those buildings, the tenant is responsible for all the repairs. So even though they might
Interesting.
submit it to us, it's not our responsibility, because their lease agreement says they have to do it.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. So when you say, if they want to request something, do we have a mass general? Yeah. But if we don't know they have a lease with us, which in one case years ago, we did not know, we just started recommending certain stuff that had to be done if it was a safety feature. So that's a little bit more, we're a little more ahead of the curve on that now. Yeah,
Dispatch.
if that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was just kind of, trying to look to see what a typical request looks like and.
I'll get you that. I mean, the
Yeah.
fire, he's got 5 or 6 items on it, very well done, very professional.
So, yeah, that would be a good one to start,
Very, yeah,
the standard, if you will.
yeah,
HVAC replacement unit, that must be the last unit in there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Council on Aging, windows
Okay.
and, yeah, there's a number of things in here we've talked about in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? I don't want to hold everybody up here. We can chat after the meeting's over if you want.
Absolutely.
Any question, Chris? Anything? You good to go?
No, yeah,
Okay.
like you said, it's, watch it done and pick it up quick, I think. It all, the layout
Yeah.
makes sense, common sense and everything, but it's just, I think getting comfortable with it and
Okay.
going through it once or twice.
All right, well, I'll
Do we
make a
have-
motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We can go for a no vote.